Hey everyone, this is Ellie Mae with Artesprix, and in today's video we're going to be creating with the Artesprix textured coasters. I'm going to go through the supplies that we'll need for this project today. We're going to be using ordinary copy paper, plain old ordinary copy paper. The best part about this is you can create and play with it to your heart's content. Don't worry about messing up. Just grab another sheet of copy paper if you don't like how it turns out. You're going to need your Artesprix Sublimation ink pads. You could also use the Artesprix ink refills, paints, or the markers for this project in different ways, but I'm going to be sharing with the Artesprix ink pads today. So I have a couple blending brushes that I'll be using. We're going to be using the Artesprix protective paper. One of the most important parts of this entire process is to protect your heat source from any of the Artesprix sublimation ink when it turns from a ink form into a gas. You do not want that gas to get out onto your press on your top or bottom platen. So we have this siliconized release paper that is your protective paper. So very, very important here. We have the Artesprix heat tape that's going to help to secure our design onto our Artesprix sublimation blank for the heating process. Then just some basic tools. I have a pencil. Pencil does not transfer to your blank, so it is a great way to draw out your templates. And then I have a pair of scissors. I have a silicone mat just to protect my work surface because I might get a little bit messy. And then I also have the Artesprix protective pad here. This is a heat safe pad that's going to protect my surface from the hot blanks when they come off of the heat press. And then I'm going to be sharing how you can use an embossing folder to create textured looks and with these textured coasters. So we're going to get some different looks. Keep in mind that while I'm going to be sharing with you a fall themed project, you can use these steps all year long to create with any embossing folder that you have in your stash. So let's go ahead and let's get started. One other thing I forgot to mention, you'll need a heat source that can heat up to 400 degrees for 90 seconds with firm pressure for this project. That's it. We're going to get started. I'm going to first take my blanks out of the package. There are 4 textured coasters in this package. I'm just going to take out one for the time being, and the top white surface is your sublimation surface. It is a textured coaster. They also have smooth coasters available as well. I'm going to take one sheet of this copy paper, and I'm just going to, for this process, I'm actually going to cut this in half, but I'm going to draw out kind of my template here just so I know where to create my design. Pencil does not transfer, so I'm just going to draw out 2 of these, and then I'm going to set this aside. So this is kind of where I can design within, and it gives you a visual for where the design will be. Since it's in pencil, we are not committed 100% to that because the pencil does not transfer. So if you like a portion of the design that's farther down here, we'll be able to work with that as well. So I'm going to set one of these aside. We're going to work with one first. So I'm going to start with one color. The other thing I forgot to mention was I'm going to be using a mini mister. So something that can spray a fine mist of water. All I have in here is water. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this embossing folder, and you want to feel which side is which. So I don't want the side that is the raised side. So this is the raised, the design is raised up on it. I want the side where the design goes down into the plastic. I'm going to lay that down on my surface. And then I'm going to select a color of ink. So the first one that I'm going to work with, let's just go with red. And I'm going to just take the whole ink pad. You do want kind of a ink pad that has a bit of ink on it. If it's dry, it's going to be harder to do this with. So if you need to, you could re-ink this and then give it some time to set up before you start this process. I'm just going to take this, and on the side where the design is imprinted, not the raised side. I already tried that. You can definitely try that. That gives it another different, unique look. I'm just going to put all this ink. Make sure you also have paper towels handy. I'm going to need those to clean up. But now it's going to place ink. We're just going to cover this, and it's placing the ink on the flat side You can see that the design is not being filled in. If you press too hard, your design will be filled in. You don't want that, but it can also give it a unique look. Dropping it can help too. So I'm just going to make sure I have some coverage there. I'm going to close my ink pad, and I'm going to take my mister, and I'll let my paper, move my paper out of the way. Take my mister, and I'm going to give it a light spritz. You can kind of see that the ink has kind of pooled. You could do it right away and add your paper now if you wanted to, or you could spritz it with some water. This is going to give it kind of a watercolor texture. This area is a little bit wet right now. It's going to be brighter or more solid, and we'll see how this turns out. I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay it completely flat. I do not want to smush it around. I want to lay it down, and I'm going to just smooth it down, and then I'm going to give it a good rub. And you can move this down over top of it and just kind of rub that in. Now, I don't need to use the embossing machine. That's a completely other look if you want to. But I do want to make sure that I'm picking up as much ink as I can. So I'm just going to rub that. And then we can pull that design. Now, as I said, my template is up in here. This gives you kind of an idea of where that is. I can move it down since it's just pencil, it's not going to transfer. So I can choose wherever to use that. I did use a full half sheet simply because I didn't want to waste that ink and not have it transfer anywhere. You want to set this aside to fully dry. And then let's go ahead, and I'm going to spritz this and use a paper towel to clean it. And then you can also save your paper towels. You can even press your paper towel as a sublimation. Because I'm picking up this sublimation ink here, you can use that as a background as well once it's dry, if you wanted to. So don't throw things away. No need to waste that sublimation ink. I'm just gonna clean up this. Sometimes the ink gets down in, but it is water soluble, so it cleans up really easily. Now, if you did let it sit on there, it might stain your embossing folder, but it's not going to harm it. So now what I can do, I can take this one, and what I might do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to draw it down here just a little bit more. Again, pencil doesn't transfer, so it works great for giving you an idea. Then I'm going to take my blending brush, and I'm going to grab my yellow ink, and then I'm going to drop it on the thing. Exactly. I can't even make that up. I'm just going to pull this ink up and use it. Just kind of blend that in there. And I'm going to cover this and just blend it, give it a little bit of different colors, different shading in here. And what I might do, since I put a big blob of ink over there, I'm just going to move this over here a little bit. Put more ink over here so I can just shift it over just a little bit. And then what I can do is I'm going to work with the orange. I'm going to clean this area up, set this aside. I'm going to use the orange in the same way. So I'm just going to gently press that all over this embossing folder. If you get it on your fingers, just clean it up with some water. Then I'll give that a quick spritz. Okay. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at one end and I'm going to smooth it down. I'm not going to smush it. I'm going to press that down. Now this is going to give us two different colors. So here on this one that's currently drying, anything that is white is going to remain white. Once this is dry, you could brush on another color. Just keep in mind that when you add one color on top of another, that is going to affect your final color output. So if you start mixing colors, you could get mud. Keep in mind your color mixing ideas and things like that. We're gonna let that one dry. I'm just gonna rub this one. Whoop, don't wrinkle it. Hopefully that didn't smush it. And then I'm gonna lift it up. So there we have our yellow with our orange. We're going to see what colors this turns out. So you could do this idea with all kinds of different embossing folders and give it a little bit different look. You could make unique creations with textured coasters, have a party, have friends over, design your own coasters, and keep your cleanup. Any of this cleanup, once it's dry, you could add more ink, except that area. Might give it a little bit more of a textured look when you go to use it. Let this dry. You can always use it as a background for something. Or be a little bit more gentle when you're cleaning up on your mess than I am on camera. I'm just gonna clean this real quick. You do want to let those other pieces dry, and then once you're done with your embossing folder, just let it dry out in case there's any water that's down in those pockets. And once those are drying, I'm going to set this aside. As those are drying, make sure my surface doesn't have anything on it. Your heat press is going to be 400 degrees for 90 seconds. While those are drying, I'm going to roll out some of this protective paper. I want to cover the top and the bottom. These are fairly small sized, and what I can actually do, this one's a little bit drier. So what I can do is I can decide where I want my blank at, and then I could cut it down if I wanted to. I'm actually not going to do it right at this second, simply because it's not quite dry yet and I don't want to place my coaster on top of it. But it's going to give it some really unique looks. So I'm going to roll out my paper, and I'm just going to do a sandwich here. Or let's see here. Take this. I just want to make sure that any blowout is going to occur on my protective paper and not onto my press. So I'm actually going to do the taco here, the loudest part of the process. Protective paper is ready, and I have my blanks ready. Now all we need to do is catch the paper as it rolls off the table, and wait for my designs to dry completely before I put my blanks on top of them. Now once your designs are completely dry, I've just swapped out my protective pad here, my protective mat for my silicone mat. I'm going to take the other coaster out. So now I have the two coasters. And then you want to decide which one or where you want to place your design at. You do not have to stay within the template that you drew. It just gives you an idea of where you want, where your design was, a starting point. So I think I'm actually going to come down here because I have this whole embossing area. I'm going to draw this out first, because what I can do is I can actually take my scissors and I can cut this off. I could use that portion for something else, like a bookmark or a keychain. It's still a good design. And then I can come back in here and I can place this on here, use my heat tape, specialized heat tape for the high heat of sublimation. And I want to make sure to secure my blank down. You do not want any air between your blank and your print, or you could end up with ghosting. So you want to make sure to just secure that down on top. The white part is down on top of the blank. And then what I can do is I can just cut this excess off. So I have a smaller piece. And then I can do the same thing here. Now I did do the yellow background here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place this right in here. Over here's where I dropped my ink pad. And I think I'm I'm gonna do right like this, but I need to flip it over. White side goes down on top of your print. And then I could do the same thing. I could cut that off here, and I will, but it's a little bit smaller area. You could actually probably get some jewelry pendants or the earring, the charms. You could save those for charms, different things. I always save, I have a pile of saved extra bits. You never know when they might come in handy. And then I'll just cut this down. And I should be able to just remove that little tiny piece. All good. So there's another piece I can use. And now I have my 2 blanks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my protective paper. One side of it is on the bottom. I'm going to take my coaster. I'm going to place the coaster down. The print is on top for both of these. And I'm going to secure that and fold this over. So I have a layer of protective paper, my sublimation blank, the print is on top, which is going to be what hits my heat surface, and a layer of protective paper. I'm going to move this carefully over to my heat press, and it actually moved just a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of move that apart. Make sure my heat source is protected and safe so that any ink that comes out is not going to get on my press. I'm going to press this at firm pressure for 90 seconds at 400 degrees. Now, once the timer goes off, I'm going to carefully release that and just kind of let that settle there for just a second. And then carefully, I'm going to grab the protective paper. I'm not going to touch the coasters. These are a hardboard. They are going to retain some heat for a lot longer than some materials. So you want to be careful. You can use some heat safe gloves if you choose to do so. What I want to show you here is that with the copy paper, and I don't know if it'll show up on camera, I can see yellow here and here. So even through the copy paper, I can already see that there is what we call blowout from the sublimation inks. That is why the protective paper is so important. And you want to make sure to protect your heat source so that that ink does not transfer to your top or bottom platen. That could affect future projects and would get on those future projects. The other thing I want to show here is what you're going to see is any ink that's outside of those edges is going to transfer onto the protective paper. So you do not want to reuse this protective paper afterwards, or that ink could reactivate and transfer. So now we're going to carefully remove these and do a test, a pink test. So they are still very warm. So I'm just going to leave that there. There's our first one. And then our second one, I'm going to take this, I'm going to throw it away. It cannot be reused, or shouldn't be reused. You can try, but you're going to end up with ghosting in different colors from that previous ink. And I'm just going to remove this, and we can go ahead and do a look here. This one gives it a little bit different look. Remember, we used a yellow, and then I used an orange. So it is a bit lighter everywhere, and that yellow comes through on that orange as well. So here you have 2 unique coasters. I actually really like this one where that white stands out. It really shows the texture from the embossing folder, and it's hard to see. Let's see if this one's cool enough. I can handle it. So it is hard to see. I'll see, maybe it'll show up on the camera, but this is a textured surface. So this one's my favorite. I'm just going to tell you right now. That one's my favorite, but you never know what it could turn out like. Some of them, the different color combinations would look really cool, and it could depend on your design as well. So I really like how this turned out, and you simply used an embossing folder. You don't even need your embossing machine. just the embossing folder. You can definitely try it with an embossed look as well. You might get a little bit different look, or the ink might transfer a little bit differently as well, but I really think this is a neat idea. You could use all kinds of embossing folders, have a party with your friends, see what each person comes up with and creates with. Make sure to check out the links below this video for all of the supplies used for this project, as well as additional resources. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below the video, and make sure to check out the Artesprix website for tutorials and inspiration, as well as additional videos on the Artesprix YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and have a great day.